Cruise news time. Well, sadly, it's cancellation day for some, and we have another cruise line that they're pushing the pre-cruise testing out of their process and onto the passenger. Is this a disturbing trend, or does it make sense? Let's talk about it. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Lido, Loca. I'm your host, Tony, here with the latest cruise news updates. Got a lot of cruise news today. We got some Disney updates, Norwegian Cruise Line updates. We got Royal Caribbean updates, MSC updates. Let's just get into the updates. Like I said, it was cancellation day yesterday for some, as Disney Cruise Line announced the cancellation of their first cruise back for the Disney Fantasy. Disney Fantasy was set to resume sailing on September the 4th from Port Canaveral, and that September 4th 7-day sailing has been canceled. Now, the changes for Disney Fantasy did not end there. They also changed the rest of the sailings in September from 7-day sailings to 4-day sailings. These 4-day Disney Fantasy sailings will still go out of Port Canaveral, but they will be making 2 stops at Disney's private island, Castaway Cay. No real insight on why that first cruise was canceled or why they went to 4 to 7 days, but we know that it's a challenging landscape in cruising right now, as the Delta variant has changed the game. I mean, if I think about cruising in early June and then even early July, we had a whole different mindset when it came to cruising, and as we've seen Delta variant come in and wreak a little havoc amongst the vaccinated and unvaccinated, it is definitely changing the cruising game, changing the protocols, and so yeah, maybe that's me speculating, maybe that's why we see this change. Disney is going to resume the longer cruises in October, so maybe it's a wait and see kind of thing to see if things stabilize, normalize when it comes to cruising. Of course, we know that Disney Cruise Line's heavily focused on families. Kids that are under 12 cannot get vaccinated, and so Disney's model going forward has to be protocols, health and safety protocols that take care of both vaccinated and unvaccinated guests. And so again, and just speculation, maybe those shorter cruise links and only going to the private island has something to do with those health and safety protocols. Right now, the Fantasy is only going to be doing these 4-day cruises in September, and then they plan to resume the longer cruises in early October. But regardless of the hows and whys, the big takeaway there is we will have another Disney cruise ship on the high seas in just a few weeks. Disney Fantasy coming our way in September. Our next cruise news story builds on a story we talked about the other day. I told you that Carnival had announced that on the Mardi Gras, they would be having bacon every other day because they were struggling with their supplier to get bacon onto the cruise ships. Well, now that bacon challenge has extended to the whole fleet. Carnival announcing that the whole fleet would go to bacon every other day. And look, nobody asked me to do this. This is just me on my own. This is not in conjunction with any organization, not in conjunction with any cruise line. But what I think as cruisers who are not cruising right now, for the cruising masses, the cruise faithful that are staying home, I think that we should commit to eating no bacon until the Carnival bacon shortage is over. Until our fellow brothers and sisters in that cruise life can have bacon every day on a Carnival cruise ship, I think that we at home should make the sacrifice and go bacon-less. That means no cheeseburgers with bacon. That means no BLTs. That means no bacon bits on our salad. That means no chocolate-covered bacon ice cream sundaes. Who's with me? Okay, that's unreasonable. I know we all have to eat bacon. Next story. And since I potentially have many of you salivating from a Pavlovian bacon response, let's continue to talk about cruise food. One of the things that people talk about a lot in that cruise life is, was the food any good? And it makes me think that food is high on the requirements for fun cruising, or for that cruise life for many of us. So let's talk about Windstar. We don't talk about Windstar because it's an expensive cruise line. I mean, I'm saying I know people cruise on Windstar, but I don't think it's most of us. Maybe someday we could have cruise goals. Windstar, small cruise line, small cruise ships, luxury, all-inclusive. Well, exciting food news coming out of Windstar. They have renewed their partnership with the James Beard Foundation. The James Beard Foundation plays a large part in recognizing culinary professionals that are top of the class. They give out the James Beard Award, and that's pretty significant. That's something that chefs would put on their resume, that they would talk about. I was a James Beard nominee. That that carries some clout, but then to be a James Beard Award winner, that carries a lot of clout. And so now we have Windstar renewing their relationship with the James Beard Foundation. And what that means is that all the way through 2025, there will be multiple themed cruises all around food for Windstar, featuring James Beard award-winning chefs. These cruises will include chef demonstrations as well as hosted 4-course dinners. Each of the themed cruise chefs will provide recipes for the sailing. They'll also be featured on Windstar's menu across the fleet. The partnership includes a variety of events, cross-marketing promotions, plus sponsorship status for the James Beard Awards in 2021. Look, I know a few foodies out there. I've never priced a Windstar cruise. I assume it's expensive, but man, to have that wonderful small ship all-inclusive experience plus some James Beard award-winning food, that sounds like a good week. I don't know. Is it just me? Do you guys love food? Are you foodie? Does this kind of story excite you? Let's talk about that in the comments. All right, let's transition into a quick Norwegian Cruise Line update. We talked about it the other day. Norwegian Cruise Line has resumed sailing from Florida on the Norwegian Gem. I did just look at the CDC color code chart. Looks like the date is only as recent as the 13th, even though it was updated onto the website on the 16th. Norwegian Gem continues to be green on that website, but it's going to be important as we go forward to see if they remain green as that cruise concludes and as they go into their next cruise. Important because this cruise is cruising at 100% vaccinated passenger, 100% vaccinated crew. All passengers were tested at the expense of Norwegian Cruise Line at the embarkation process. So it will be interesting to see if there are any breakthrough cases on the Gem. I know a lot of folks out there are curious as to which cruise ships have cases reported on them. Let me recommend to you again the CDC color-coded website. Cruise lines aren't necessarily required to report to the public when they have cases, but they are required to report to the CDC. And this is the site where you can see which cruise ships have reported cases. And I was excited and honored to be asked to contribute to this article on Forbes.com talking about the CDC website. So if you haven't had a chance, check out the article on Forbes.com. But yes, we will continue to watch the Norwegian Gem to see what's what. Now I'd like to take a moment to talk about Royal Caribbean. Got an update around my favorite cruise ship. But before I get there, let me quickly invite you to subscribe. If you like staying up to date with everything that's going on in cruising, please consider subscribing with the notification bell on. It doesn't cost anything. You get notified when the videos come out, and it helps us out. I appreciate it. Thank you in advance. Well, I'm only 5 days left in my 40s. My big milestone birthday is on the 22nd of August. And in a serendipitous, synergistic, whatever buzzword you want to use, coincidence, my favorite cruise ship will begin her test sailings on my birthday. And it's significant. It's the Oasis of the Seas. She will be making her test cruise out of Bayonne, New Jersey. It's significant because it marks really the cruise restart in the Northeast. And so I just wanted to throw it out there. Let's have some positive thoughts for Oasis of the Seas test sailing, getting ready to start in just a few days. I've heard from a few of you in the comments that you're going to be able to get on this test sailing, or you're scheduled to be one of the first paying passengers for the Oasis of the Seas up there in Bayonne. And yeah, that's the only point of the story, just to be excited that my favorite cruise ship is getting back on the high seas. What's your favorite cruise ship? Leave a comment below. And now let's talk about the trend that seems to be emerging in cruising right now, the requirement for all passengers to be tested before they get on the cruise ship, and a trend where most of the cruise lines are pushing that testing requirement directly onto the passengers. The latest company to do that, MSC Cruises, changed the health protocols and said that people that are coming on MSC cruise ships, it's up to them to provide a negative test at time of embarkation. You'll remember just a few weeks ago, I was on MSC Meraviglia. I did not have to show up with a test at the cruise port. They tested me at the cruise port at the cruise line's expense. Now, if in the future I go on an MSC cruise, or if I went on the MSC Meraviglia again, it would be up to me to show up at the cruise port with my own test. This is a trend we're seeing in other cruise lines, Carnival, Royal. It's not that unfamiliar. Interestingly, you see the cruise lines starting to align around this idea that all passengers need a test at embarkation, and that all passengers will be responsible for the cost and the procurement of that test. Of course, one outlier to that is Norwegian Cruise Line. They are testing everyone at the terminal at Norwegian's expense. But it begs the question, is this unfair to the future cruiser, or does this make sense? Let's look at it from both sides of the argument. I think it's easy to argue it's unfair to the cruiser because previously I didn't have to worry about scheduling a test. I didn't have to worry about the cost of a test. I didn't have to worry about the timing of the test. I was able to go to the cruise port and go through the embarkation process, and then anything that I needed to have done to me, like a test, would be done at the cruise terminal. And so certainly this is an extra layer of complexity, an extra layer of overhead that cruisers did not have until this trend started. But let's look at it from the doesn't make sense perspective. We have to put on our hat as if we work for the cruise line to figure out if it makes sense or not. For me, if I was working at the cruise line, one reason I would argue that it makes sense to push the testing onto the passenger is because of the cost. Cruise lines are spending whatever it costs to test each passenger. Hopefully they're getting some sort of bulk discount, but they still have to pay to have people there to do the testing. They have to pay for the testing. There's an expense to that. But then when the realization hits you that this testing is free for most everybody in the country, it becomes a head scratcher. If I was the cruise line, I would be like, why would I be paying for everybody to get a test when they can get it for free in their local community for most people? It's not going to be everyone, but when I talked about getting a test and paying for it, the overwhelming majority of the comments were like, why would you pay for it? You can get the test for free. And as I went and explored, I definitely could get the test for free. So if I was the cruise line and I had, insight into that information, I'd be like, why are we paying for testing when people can get it for free? Another reason, if I was working at the cruise line, that I would be arguing to push the testing onto the customer prior to showing up at the terminal is that the testing at the terminal adds a decent amount of time to the embarkation process. When I went on the MSC Meraviglia, they tested me, and the testing process before we moved on to the next place took about 2 hours. Now, let's compare that to when I got on board the Celebrity Edge. I left the Uber and I was in my cabin in 22 minutes on the Celebrity Edge. When I went on the MSC Meraviglia, I left the Uber and it was 3 hours before I got on the cruise ship, and 2 of those hours was because of testing. Look, I had level set my expectations. I knew that I was in for a long embarkation process. It wasn't fun, but I wasn't mad. But I know that not everybody is like that, and that all of a sudden, if you're hitting a bunch of people with a 3 or 4 hour embarkation process, you may likely have garnered some ill will from people that get on the cruise ship and say, wow, this better be the best cruise ever because I just went through 4 hours of pain to get on it. And, you don't want people jumping on the cruise ship that are in a negative mood because they will be really hypersensitive for more negativity. And so I could see from a customer satisfaction perspective, pushing that stress off to the customer. It certainly stinks for the customer, as we've said, because now they have to stress out, figure out how to get the test, but they will arrive at the cruise port slightly in a different situation if they're able to jump on the cruise ship quickly. And then a final reason why the cruise ship may want to push the testing onto the passenger is it also removes the ill will of testing positive. If you go to your local CVS and you come up with a positive test, then you might be less likely to be angry at the cruise port if you have all your stuff there, if it's cruise day, if you're made your way to the embarkation terminal, if you got an hour into the process, if you were sitting in the terminal, if you were looking at the cruise ship, and then somebody shows up and said, oh, you tested positive, you can't cruise today. That's another scenario where you may not feel exactly excited for the cruise line. However, if you're at your local CVS and you test positive, then that's a whole different thing. You can work with the cruise line, get your money back, all that kind of thing. But I think the cruise lines would surmise that you're not going to be as mad at them as if you went through that whole testing positive process moments before you got on the cruise ship. To me, MSC now pushing the testing back onto the passengers, that's a big step, and it really is defining a trend that other cruise lines have already been working toward. Like I said, NCL, for right now, it's just their first cruise back. They're the big holdout on that, but compelling case. Why would you pay for all those tests as the cruise line if most people can get it for free? Interesting conversation. That's where I'll leave it. Let me kick the question over to you. Did you get canceled on Disney? Are you cruising on Oasis? And what do you think about this trend where the testing, pre-cruise testing, is being pushed to the cruiser and out of the hands of the cruise line? Is it frustrating? Does it make sense? Leave a comment below. Thanks so much for checking out the show today. Please hit the like button or your GoPro battery will die right when you get on the zip line that you've waited to get on for an hour. That you won't be able to record it. And that will be frustrating. This is Tony with La Lido Loca, and until the next time, we'll see you on the Lido. Bye.